This is Chapter 2. At this level, the problem is not the size of the estimate. The problem is what happens around the estimate when the number gets heavy. Big numbers change the air in the room. You feel it before the customer says anything. The posture shifts. The keys get tighter in the hand. The silence lasts a second longer than normal. Most advisors misread that moment. They think the customer is reacting to price. What the customer is actually reacting to is loss of control. When a number arrives without structure, the brain interprets it as a trap. And once a decision feels like a trap, trust collapses, no matter how legitimate the work is. At Tier 3, high-ticket conversations are not sales moments. They are leadership moments. They determine whether the shop stays stable or starts leaking time, money, and morale in quiet ways that don't show up on a single ticket. This is where capable advisors default. They lead with the total because they want clarity. They over-explain because they feel exposed. They borrow urgency to regain control of the moment. None of that is malicious. It's human, and it's exactly what destabilizes operations. When customers feel trapped, they don't always say no. Sometimes they say yes just to escape the pressure. That yes is fragile. It cancels later. It turns into regret, disputes, reschedules, and erosion of trust that spreads beyond a single visit. Bays go idle. Schedules slip. Technicians lose confidence that inspections matter. The day stops holding together. Tier 3 mastery is understanding that high-ticket decisions must be architected, not dumped. You do not win these moments by being smoother, louder, or more convincing. You win them by replacing improvisation with structure so the customer stays calm, oriented, and in control, even when the number challenges their comfort. This chapter exists to reframe how you handle big money, not to teach you how to close, but to teach you how to lead a decision so cleanly that the yes is calm, or the no becomes a protected plan instead of a fracture. If you can do that, high-ticket estimates stop being threats to your day. They become stabilizing events. And that is the difference between a shop that survives busy days and a shop that stays stable when the money gets uncomfortable. That is what Chapter 2 is about. Big numbers don't break trust. Trapped decisions do. Most advisors believe high-ticket estimates fail because customers can't afford them, aren't prepared for them, or simply don't value the work. That belief is convenient, but it's inaccurate. What actually breaks trust in high-ticket moments is not the number itself. It's the moment the customer realizes they are being asked to decide without footing. When a large number shows up without structure, the brain doesn't evaluate cost. It evaluates danger. Humans don't process big decisions well when they feel cornered. A sudden total with no map feels like a cliff. The body reacts before the mind can catch up. Breathing changes. Shoulders tense. Silence stretches. And while the advisor is still talking, the customer has already started looking for an exit. That exit is rarely dramatic. It's polite. I need to think about it. Let me talk to someone. Can you send that to me? Those responses are not rejections of the work. They are rejections of the experience of being trapped inside a decision they didn't feel guided through. At Tier 3, this distinction matters. Customers will tolerate big numbers if they understand what they represent and where they fit. What they will not tolerate is having their autonomy stepped on. The moment consent is assumed instead of built, trust fractures. Structure prevents that fracture. Structure gives the customer a mental framework before the wait arrives. It shows them that there is order, priority, and intention behind the recommendation. It replaces panic with orientation. When customers can see the path, the number stops feeling like a threat and starts feeling like information. This is why calm approvals are rarely about persuasion. They are about architecture. When advisors skip structure and dump the load all at once, even correct recommendations feel manipulative. When advisors lead with structure and sequence the truth, customers stay present. They may still say no, but it's a grounded no. And grounded no's turn into plans instead of chaos. At Tier 3, you don't try to make big numbers smaller. You make decisions safer. Safety is what allows customers to choose without regret. That's the shift. Big numbers don't break trust. Trapped decisions do. Here's the question that exposes whether you are actually leading high-ticket decisions or just surviving them. Are you presenting a plan, or are you dumping a number and hoping the customer survives it? Most advisors don't recognize the difference in the moment because the pressure inside the shop distorts judgment. A technician is waiting. The phone is ringing. The day feels fragile. The instinct is to get to the number quickly so everyone can move on. That instinct is understandable and expensive. When you lead with the total, you force the customer to absorb the full load before they understand what they're carrying. The brain reacts defensively. Even if the customer stays quiet, the decision has already destabilized. Watch what happens next. The customer stops asking clarifying questions. Their answers shorten. Their body angles away. They stop engaging and start protecting. That's not resistance to the work. That's resistance to being controlled. The most common mistake at this point is escalation. Advisors fill the silence with explanation. They defend the price. They add urgency. They try to rescue the moment by pushing harder. Every one of those moves increases pressure and reduces consent. This is where many high-ticket approvals are accidentally destroyed. A customer who feels trapped may still say yes, but that yes is fragile. It's made to escape discomfort, not because the decision feels fair. Once the customer leaves the environment that pressured them, control returns. That's when doubt shows up. That's when cancellations happen. That's when the shop pays the price later. So the question isn't whether the work is justified. The question is whether the decision environment is stable enough to support a yes that lasts. If your process forces customers to carry the full load before they have structure, you are creating trapped decisions, even if your intentions are clean. Hold that distinction. Because the next part of this chapter is about how to build architecture around high-ticket estimates so customers never feel cornered and big decisions stop destabilizing your operation. At this point, the distinction is clear. High-ticket estimates don't fail because the work is wrong. They fail because the decision collapses under load. Scene 4 is about how to prevent that collapse consistently, ethically, and under real pressure. The first discipline is fairness before load. When a customer hears a large number without context, their brain assumes imbalance. Something is being taken. Fairness corrects that assumption. You start by naming what is strong, what is working, and what is worth protecting. This is not politeness. It is stabilization. A fair start tells the customer you are not hunting, you are evaluating reality. Next comes allegiance to the original concern. High-ticket failures often happen because advisors jump to the biggest findings first. That violates trust. Sequence is respect. You solve the reason the customer came before you talk about anything else. When you honor their concern first, you prove you're on their side, not just managing your day. Then comes categorization. Lists overwhelm, categories clarify. The brain cannot hold 5, 6, or 8 unrelated line items at once, especially under stress. Categories give shape to the load. Safety, required repairs. Planning items, monitoring. Structure removes the cliff by turning chaos into order. Right, within those categories, you prioritize honestly what must be done now and why. What can be scheduled next with dates? What can be monitored with thresholds? If everything is urgent, nothing is credible. High-ticket leadership requires restraint. You protect trust by resisting the urge to dramatize risk to offset shock. This is where evidence becomes non-negotiable. High-ticket recommendations must be supported with photos, measurements, and technician notes translated into plain language. Evidence is not there to convince, it's there to orient. Evidence reduces debate, delays, and shopping because it gives the customer something solid to stand on. Once structure is in place, you offer 2 responsible paths, never one cliff, never a buffet. One path handles today's priorities and schedules the rest. The other handles full scope while the vehicle is already there. 2 paths restore control without surrendering leadership. The customer stays in the driver's seat, but the road is clearly marked. Tone matters throughout. As the number rises, your pace slows. Calm tone is not weakness, it is authority. When you rush, the customer feels hunted. When you slow intentionally, the customer feels guided. Tone is how you keep control intact while telling the truth. Finally, you lock consent. Consent is not a signature. It is understanding confirmed, path chosen, approvals and declines documented with timelines. When consent is clear, decisions hold. When consent is assumed, decisions unravel later. This is the high-ticket architecture TM in practice. Structure first. Load second. Consent always. That is how you turn large estimates into stable outcomes instead of operational chaos. This chapter sets a clear Tier 3 standard for handling big money without breaking trust or destabilizing the shop. First, you replace improvisation with structure. You do not dump numbers. You build plans. You lead with fairness, honor the original concern, Organize findings into categories and prioritize without drama. Second, you protect control instead of borrowing urgency. You slow your tone as the number rises. You use evidence to orient, not to pressure. You give two responsible paths so the customer can choose without feeling cornered. Third, you measure success by stability, not speed. Stable approvals protect pay rhythm. They protect technician hours. They protect schedules, morale, and reputation. Even when the answer is no, structure turns that no into a plan instead of a fracture. High-ticket mastery is not about closing harder. It is about leading cleaner. When decisions feel fair, customers stay calm. When customers stay calm, approvals stick. When approvals stick, the shop holds together, even on the hardest days. The challenge is direct. On your next high-ticket estimate, do not lead with a total. Lead with the plan. Categorize, prioritize, show the proof. Offer two responsible paths. Confirm understanding. Document the next step before the customer leaves. That is how big numbers stop feeling dangerous. That is how clarity beats pressure. That is high-ticket sales at Tier 3.